Hello and welcome to our final installment of the Summerland Museum Summer YouTube series. My name is Hannah and I am the 2020 Summer Program Coordinator here at the museum. I'd first like to take a second to acknowledge that we are on the unceded and ancestral territory of the Syilx people. Today we're going to be talking about the Fall Fair, as we're coming into autumn and it's a perfect example of how we celebrate autumn here in Summerland. So the first Fall Fair, how did it begin? The beginning of the Fall Fair was actually called the Apple Show. And there was 4 reasons that it came to be in Summerland. One was Summerland was doing amazingly well internationally at fruit competitions. They went to the Spokane Apple Show, the Royal Horticultural Society exhibition in England, and as well as the Exposition Universelle in France. So they brought their apples all around the world and were doing really well. Summerland had experienced fruit growers such as James Gartrell, and they had been in the business for almost 20 years. Summerland also had the financial backing of the Canadian Pacific Railway president, Sir Thomas Shaughnessy, and he'd made significant investments in developing the agriculture industry here in Summerland. This placed the community way ahead of most of the fruit production competition, and Summerland was pretty far ahead of all the other places that were producing fruit. So they're ready to host their own apple show. A second factor which helped initiate the fair was the personalities who actually helped it. The 3 people were David H. Watson, who was the superintendent of the Summerland Development Company, R.H. Agar, Summerland's Reeve, and Ralph E. White, the editor of the Summerland Review. In 1909, Watson felt that an apple show would be an effective method of promoting our community. Reeve Agar was also the president of the Board of Trade and an active member of the British Columbia Tree Fruits Association, and he felt that an apple show would effectively promote both Summerland's businesses and the fruit industry. Ralph White, the editor of the Summerland Review, was a strong supporter of this idea. He was very enthusiastic in the covering of the fair in his newspaper, and he was critical to the success of this apple show. A third reason to have the apple show was to coincide with Sir Thomas Shaughnessy's annual visit. Each year, starting as early as 1902, Shaughnessy visited Summerland in the fall to monitor the development of the company. And finally, an equally important factor was Summerland's extremely active and energetic organization, the Summerland Women's Institute. The institute was formed in 1897 and the ladies organized locally in 1909. Their support helped start and maintain the Fall Fair as an annual event here in Summerland. The idea of the Fall Fair first started in the Summerland Review on September 25th in 1909. Within just a couple weeks, with the support of many enthusiastic citizens and equally enthusiastic newspaper editor, Ralph White, helped the event become a reality. According to the Summerland Review, the Apple Show will be doubtlessly be the forerunner to greater things in the future. There's an abundance of talent in the district to provide a choice as a general exhibition as can be found anywhere in Canada. So it was going to be a general exhibition that was at the level of bigger exhibitions, and it was this new thing in the community that everyone is super excited about. The first Apple Show took place on October 7th, 1909, and was held at the newly created athletic grounds near Crescent Beach. The Fall Fair Committee also created a small building to house the expeditions, and local MLA Price Elson and the Summerland Reeve, R.H. Agar, officially opened the Apple Show. So for the second show in 1910, Shaughnessy actually came, and this was because a new partially completed exhibition hall was used at Beach Orchard Park. It was actually officially opened by J.M. Robinson, and some new exhibits included painted china and photographs by Okanagan photographer C. Peel Nelson, and it was constructed to impress Shaughnessy. With much excitement for his rival, Sir Thomas Shaughnessy arrived in Summerland at the close of the fair. The SS Okanagan resigned that day to service the special guests of Shaughnessy, which included Sir William White, R.B. Angus, Charles Hosmer, and the chief engineer of the Western Division of the CPR, Mr. Switzer. Sir Thomas was given the guided tour of the fair site and was shown a new variety of apple with the suggested name Shaughnessy Red, after Shaughnessy. Apparently it tickled his fancy. Following his Summerland visit, Shaughnessy left for Vancouver and was officially opening the National Apple Show, for which he was named the honorary president because of his great contributions to the fruit industry. At the Apple Show, many prizes were awarded in many categories. Although it was called the Apple Show, the fair involved more than just fruit. It involved vegetables, flowers, needlecraft, and baking goods. A small poultry exhibit also was held at the fire hall. There was almost 400 entries in the first fair, including numerous displays of arts and crafts and farmyard and dairy stock. The most controversial event, and that received the most media attention, was the baby show. Summerland Review described the baby show as a galaxy of infantile loveliness. Questions were asked about the qualifications of the male judges for the criteria for judging the criteria of determining a winning baby. When Price Ellison observed the baby show, he actually offered 6 different awards to try and minimize the controversy. Howard Morgan, who was born and raised in Summerland, received 2nd place in the Class 2 contest. Howard then became one of Okanagan Valley's most respected citizens, and in the year 2008, he was given provincial recognition for his family maintaining the farmland here for over 100 years. In an interview with him, they asked if his comments on his 2nd place in the standing in the Better Baby contest helped him anyway in life. He said he had minimal effect on any future endeavors, and he was actually totally unaware that he won. Another important part in the history of the Fall Fair was the Women Institute's Summerland Fall Show that began in 1912 and was held in the last 2 weeks of August, so that would be happening right now. The floral competition would become the backbone of all future fall fairs, and it was always more of an exhibit of flowers. Entries were received for competitions in many of the different parts, and at this time, Summerland and Naramata were actually very closely linked by the ferry service, and several of the winners of the first flower show were from Naramata. Many of the trophies are actually still in use that originated from the flower show. As the Fall Fair went into the 1910s, it continued to flourish until the year 1915, which was marked by Canada being fully active in the war in Europe. And of course, this had an impact on Summerland's fair activity. Even though the date of the Flower and Fancy Work show was scheduled, the show was cancelled. But the Fall Fair in early November was revived. The fair did not have as much fruit and vegetable exhibits as the years before, but there was an expansion of handicrafts and culinary art exhibits. The fair was described as the first agriculture fair in Summerland, and actually the experimental farm, later called the research station, presented an educational exhibit at this fair. And this was a way for Summerland to see what was actually happening at the experimental farms. As it turned out, the farm's exhibit was one of the most popular at the fair. Another very important event was the fruit packing contest, as well as a poultry show, which actually took place in the last weekend of December. And this actually, the poultry show was in conjunction with Naramata, so it actually had a number of attendees from Naramata and from Summerland. In 1916, the flower show emerged as an annual event and was later held in August that year. The experimental farm actually continued with their educational displays, and the tradition of a community dance actually began. In 1916, it began, and it was called Summerland Home Comfort Club Dance, and all proceeds went to Summerland soldiers. In 1917, there was almost 700 entries and 175 exhibitors at the show. The Women's Institute alone had 112 entries. For the first time, there was a live auction of livestock as part of the fair's activities. And the introduction of the Best Pumpkin Pie contest had begun, and it has been a very popular contest ever since. In 1917, the school joined, and they became a new attraction with their children's crafts and writings. 2 new trophies were added in 1917 as well, the BC Nursery Special Award and the Mallet Cup. In 1918, there was more entries, 400, and the Summerland schools had even greater presence under the guidance of Miss Brown, a very popular kindergarten teacher. The heaviest pumpkin that year was grown by Clark Wilson of Trout Creek, tipping the scale at 133 pounds. A card on the pumpkin stated that the pumpkin was offered to anyone who could pick it up and carry it home. No one accepted the offer. The heaviest potato was grown by Thompson Elliott of Peachland, weighing in at 3.5 pounds. In 1918, there was reduced attendance at the fair due to the emergence of the Spanish flu. Actually, public health officials discouraged travel, and for a time they strictly limited people crossing the bridge into Penticton. Following the end of World War 1921 and the Spanish flu, 1919 fair was called the Fall Apple Show and Peace Fair. And in 1920, unfortunately, with a slumped market in fruit sales, the enthusiasm for a fruit fair diminished. But after some community debate, it was decided to proceed with it. So the Women's Institute kept the flower show running throughout the Depression, and the Empire Day actually became a part of the Fall Fair in 1921. Unlike Empire Day celebrations that had happened before at the experimental gardens, this was a sporting event. And one of the greatest contests was horse racing for boys under the age 18. The proceeds that day were all donated to the Summerland Hospital and the Great War Veterans Association. Also that year, for the first time, the Board of Trade partnered with the Agriculture Society in organizing the Apple Show. 7 members of the Board of Trade became directors of the Agriculture Society. The Women's Institute has continued to take a lot of interest and worked hard for the Fall Fair into the following years. They also did something where they divided Summerland into 6 districts and made them compete for their displays of fruit, vegetables, cereals, field crops, and dairy produce. In the year 1921, the Jones Flat and Crescent Beach district won this. One addition to the occasion of the Fall Fair was actually a baseball game, which was part of the Okanagan International Baseball League. And one year, the first year Summerland squared off with Oliver. There's also a fun indoor baseball game with players in costume. Summerland's Fall Fair today has continually adapted to the changing community. It has continued to change its categories to reflect the interests and character of our community. Summerland continues to be an agricultural community, but also one which values its arts and crafts, its local businesses, its sports, its culinary skills, and its seniors and youth. Over the past 100 years and more, the Fall Fair has played an important role in supporting and showcasing the talents of our citizens. Today, the fair this year has unfortunately been canceled due to COVID-19 protocols. However, a committee has big plans for 2021, and they're excited to welcome everyone back. Thus concludes our Summer History YouTube series. I sincerely hope everyone who watched this learned something and will take this new knowledge with them into the future. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us here at the Summerland Museum, and make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel to see what is coming next from the museum. Thank you so much for an awesome summer, and see you next year.